Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, staying safe, and I appreciate you folks joining me this evening as we try to figure out what's going to happen weather-wise for the weekend. Already some pretty active weather out there as I speak in Texas, and there was some pretty active weather earlier this afternoon where it looked like we had a rain-wrapped tornado. I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but regardless, we had some strong winds with this. So I heard some people saying, some storm chasers out there saying they saw some debris getting tossed around. So something was going on inside of this high precipitation supercell in the heart of Texas earlier this afternoon. But regardless, we got a pretty nasty line of storms working its way through southeast portions of Texas. And believe it or not, this is actually going to enter the Gulf of Mexico, the northwest Gulf of Mexico, sweep across the Gulf of Mexico, the northern half of it, and eventually this same energy will actually move into Florida tomorrow afternoon in southern areas of Georgia. It's pretty wild that something's going to move all the way from Texas all the way to Florida, the same kind of complex of thunderstorms. And this is actually going to promote a nasty severe weather setup potential for Florida tomorrow, and then maybe southern Georgia. And then we need, in the second half of the video, we need to discuss what could potentially happen in the Carolinas. I do think we could have a severe weather event, especially maybe early Sunday morning in the Carolinas, really talking about the eastern sections of the Carolinas. So we're going to talk about multiple things in this video, get as detailed as we can. Confidence is very low. You haven't heard a lot of people talk about this because confidence is so low. You don't want to hype something up that you have such a low confidence on. And I'll believe it or not, unfortunately, the confidence is still pretty low. But if you read the Storm Prediction Center outlook, they're already kind of sounding the alarm a little bit about maybe the high-end potential for tomorrow. There could be some tornadoes in South Georgia and Florida. With that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. I want to quickly mention the kids. You might hear some kids in the background. It's Friday night. You might hear some dogs barking in the background. There's usually a lot going on outside my house and inside my house on a Friday night. Just typical Friday night in the West household. So if you hear that, do apologize. So what's going on? You got a big digging, not dipping, same thing. Big digging upper trough. You got a surface low popping off. And if you're wondering what this explosion right here over Texas is, that is our supercells that exploded, created high cloud tops, and then just movement aloft in the air is actually pushes these cloud tops further to the east, if you will. In a nutshell, that's kind of what's happening. You got an area of thunderstorms that's fired off in the northeast Gulf of Mexico, but this area that you see right, let's see if this is going to work, and we know it will, so we're good. But this area of energy is actually going to dig down into the Gulf of Mexico and actually hit Florida tomorrow and South Georgia. This entire area potentially could get some very nasty weather tomorrow and eventually get into the Carolinas. So it's pretty wild how this is digging. This is digging big time. Surface lows digging down, energy digs, and then it comes back up. So pretty impressive setup that we're seeing here, that's for sure. So let's go on and move. So we look at the Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow. You're thinking, Mitch, this does not look like a big deal. There's a slight risk. There's a marginal risk all the way up to Columbia, all the way back to New Orleans, and slight risk covers up some of the same similar areas that's been under the gun over the last several days, except it's further north, areas further north. I would say South Georgia and northern Florida, we need to really watch this area. This is where better dynamics overlap one another in this region, but you got a slight risk right now. Let's zone into this region. Just a level 2 out of 5, but I would not be surprised one bit if this upgrades to an enhanced risk. Not one bit. Not saying, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, you heard it here first, but I just think the confidence is low. That's why it's not issued right now. But tornado threat. I mean, listen, you got a 5% risk of a tornado in this brown area within 25 miles on any given location for tomorrow. This runs from tomorrow morning all the way to Sunday morning. And you got a 2% risk all the way up to Columbia, Charleston, Savannah, Macon. But 5% risk for some highly populated areas, Jacksonville, Orlando, down the Space Coast, down the eastern coast of Florida, down to Tampa Bay, the Big Bend areas of Florida, areas of the Panhandle, Tallahassee. Okay, so definitely a lot of areas under that 5% risk. Do we get a 10% risk for the next upgrade overnight tonight? We'll have to see. Health threat, it'll be the biggest right along the eastern coast of Florida and southeast Georgia, but as of now, just that 15% risk of hail in 1 inch diameter or larger. Wind threat. If this goes enhanced, honestly, I could see it going enhanced because of wind, but we'll see. As of now, 15% risk of winds in excess of 50 knots or higher in this region. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. So I know you're thinking, Mitch, well, this doesn't seem like a really big deal, but I could see this uptrending on the next update overnight tonight. So let's take a look at how the radar can unfold tomorrow. So let's look at a broad look. First off, this is what's going on in Texas right now. We got a tornado warning just outside of College Station. But this is an intense line of storms working its way through southeast Texas. This is damaging winds, wind-driven large hail, and this energy that you see right here. Okay, here's Florida over here, right? This energy right here is going to dip into the Gulf of Mexico, ride out in the ocean, hit some oil rigs, and make it all the way to Florida tomorrow. It's pretty wild to think about, but that's exactly what's going to happen. And here's the HRRR model that shows it. Let's get this in some motion up here. This is what shows it. If you're wondering what time frame we're at, this does include Eastern time and Central time. So this is an Eastern time, so 11 p.m. tonight. This digs down to the Gulf of Mexico. It chills out in Texas. This is about 8 a.m. Eastern time. You got a nasty line of storms. I would hate to be a ship out here or a boat or anything. Please definitely be aware of any of this if anybody just happens to be watching. But this will be a nasty complex of storms out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. And this is intense. I mean, I would, if there was a radar that could show, I mean, we might be able to see it off the radar in New Orleans. But I mean, this is around 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Huge area of storms right here in the north central area of the Gulf of Mexico coming in. And I mean, it is moving fast. By the time we're at lunchtime Eastern time, these storms are getting very close to the Panhandle, the Big Bend areas, the west coast of Florida. And then, I mean, here it comes. You're thinking, holy cow, this is about to be bad. And here it comes. And let's go on and just get a little bit closer. And let's go right back to where we were. Here's this line of storms. This is around 1 p.m. or noon to 1 p.m. tomorrow. These lines of storms are coming. You got to watch out first. There's a couple things to mention. We'll stop it here about 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. You got this area convection right up here. Showers and storms, Tallahassee, southwest Georgia. Watch out for some embedded spin-ups with this. And then you obviously got this huge bowing out line. And this moves in, could slam Tampa Bay maybe around 4, 5, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Does it lose some intensity in the Big Bend areas? Not sure. This could be a lot stronger than what it shows. Of course, the more yellows and reds and purples and pinks you see on here, that's the stronger it is. But one thing I do want to note here is you could have some isolated supercell development that forms in a huge moist sector of air right here. Cape will be very high in this region. So you could have some isolated scattered supercells, very strong storms that could produce some large hail, maybe even a spin up, even ahead of this main energy right into here. And please don't ignore these areas up here in southern Georgia, okay? There will be some dynamics to support all hazards, just not a huge threat. But I mean, look down here, way down here in southern areas of Florida. I mean, you got some pretty intense storms. You got storms right here ahead of it, and these storms sweep through the Tampa Bay area. And do they lose some steam? Does the energy kind of transfer? And then this becomes the main topic. That's why you got a bigger hail threat in this region, the eastern coast of Florida, than you do on the western coast. But look at these storms. I mean, you're about 5, 6 p.m. at this point. These storms are starting to surge into getting close to southern South Carolina, the low country. And then one thing I want to mention, excuse me, is, these storms will lose some steam and it'll kind of tamper off here. And then what I want to see is what these storms up here in southern Alabama do as we are getting into 11, 10 p.m. tomorrow night. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center, if you read the discussion for tomorrow, it mentions the chance for not only 1, but 2 mesoscale convective systems that could sweep through North Florida and southern Georgia. And this could be some nasty weather in southern Alabama tomorrow night. And then we're getting to about midnight. At this point, the main surface lows right up here, and you got to watch out this line of storms developing here too. And this is at this point 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I really want to watch these storms too in the wee hours of the morning in Florida. So you'll have the first round that moves through during the day, and then you could have a nocturnal kind of late nights wee hours of the morning threat that can develop in the panhandle of Florida just after midnight. It might work its way into the Big Bend areas to the wee hours of the morning, and could be waking up to a very stormy Sunday morning in the state of Florida for sure. So if you're wondering what's kind of building into this, well, you got tons of low-level moisture. When I say low-level moisture, that's higher dew points. So you wake up and it feels tropical in the state of Florida. Typically at this time of the year, it's pretty normal to feel tropical in the state of Florida. But we're getting into afternoon hours, and look at all these dew points. Look at these dew points rising well into the low 70s in southern Georgia, northern Florida. Pools of low 70 dew points. So like we always mention, in response to these higher dew points, and then you'll have a surge with this line also. In response to this, you have higher cape levels. So this is mixed layer cape. This is not surface layer. Look at these cape levels that rise. Already, I would say late morning, midday tomorrow, cape levels already over excess of 2,000 joules per kilogram. That is a ton of fuel for these storms, this line of storms to kind of eat off of. And really, if you watch a boundary up here, cape levels rise almost up to 2,500 joules per kilogram in southern Georgia. I know I'm just spitting out a bunch of terms, but once you have a lot of players on the field, and the next player, which is the wind profile aloft, when you have cape levels over 1,000 joules per kilogram, that can get the job done if you have all the other ingredients in place. And we will have high cape levels tomorrow. That will not be an issue with these storms to eat all this fuel off of. So a lot of fuel to the atmosphere, and then you'll watch behind it. Do we have any more juice to the atmosphere in these regions overnight? This is kind of be an overnight threat, and how much fuel to the atmosphere. But one thing I worry about, and the Storm Prediction Center discusses this, is on approach of these storms, the low-level jets starting to ramp up. Okay, so this is going to be some strong winds aloft. You got a low-level jet pushing 40 to 50, maybe at times 55 knots. So that means about 6,000 feet above our heads in this region. Winds are gusting to 55, 60, 65 miles per hour. This will mix at the surface. This will put a little bit of a spin, some shear, directional shear to the atmosphere, and you are probably going to have a tornado threat embedded in this line of storms that we just discussed right here. So right as this main area of kind of convection is approaching, the low-level jet's beginning to ramp up kind of as it's heading out, but it will still be ramping up. So you got to watch for some of this convection to be spinning. Okay, and we flip it back to this. What I want to watch is as the main surface low pulls in, remember we have this line of storms building back here. So if you flip it back here, you got some storms into southern Alabama, the panhandle of Florida, around midnight, we might as well say. But if you look at that low-level jet, same time frame around midnight, right ahead of the storms, a 30, 40, 45 knot low-level jet. So that to me supports a favorable wind profile for some of these storms once we get well into the nighttime hours tomorrow night to potentially produce a tornado in these areas. So we certainly need to watch out for that. So I definitely just want to make you guys aware. It's not hyping anything up, but this could certainly develop into a more high-end event as we're getting, as we're waking up tomorrow morning. You might wake up and you're like, but dang, it didn't look this bad yesterday. This is just kind of one of those setups. So we certainly need to watch out for that. Sorry guys, had to temporarily pause the video because my dog was out there raising Cain. Just can't concentrate when you got a dog barking insanely loud in the background. But we keep this rolling. We look at the significant tornado parameter, and it doesn't look super high. Remember, we look at this to try to gauge the atmosphere if it supports tornadic development. But like I said, you watch these storms. Sometime late tomorrow night, the second round of storms definitely has a more favorable wind profile to deal with. So if you look at a sounding kind of in this region, significant tornado parameter of like a 1, marginal tornado surrounding, you got a little bit of a looping hodograph, but you're definitely lacking some ingredients in this region. But you look at the panhandle down here a little bit further south, that's a tornado sounding there, a looping hodograph, low level moisture up in the upper 60s, a little bit of cape to deal with, but not a ton. So we certainly need to watch. There's going to be 2 rounds for these areas: Florida, South Georgia, even southern Alabama, the panhandle of Florida. Okay, so let's go on and move into the Carolinas. So we'll start it off around late evening Saturday night, tomorrow night. Well, getting into the overnight hours, I don't expect this to really produce anything to worry about. This heavier rain showers and storms that could blast through Virginia into the wee hours of the morning. Surface lows arriving into your picture down here at this part of your screen, down in this area. Okay, you got a lot of showers and storms, but notice it's 4 o'clock in the morning. You don't have any sunshine at 4 o'clock in the morning. You don't have any surface heating. And, technically it's one of the coolest parts of the day. So a lot of showers, a lot of morning convection moves through the southern Appalachian Mountains, North Georgia, South Carolina, into the Piedmont, North Carolina. But what I watch here, surface low right into this region, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. An open sector is developing, a big surge of moist air is coming off the Atlantic Ocean right into here. You got an atmosphere, even though it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you got an atmosphere that's probably beginning to become unstable. So what I watch for here, for your Sunday morning, it's 10 a.m. Watch for these storms right into here. I think these storms will absolutely be spinning just off the coastline of Wilmington, of North Carolina, southeast North Carolina, off the coast of Myrtle Beach. But I would watch these storms. Raleigh points east into northeast North Carolina, even southeast Virginia. I really would watch these. Okay, it could be an active Sunday morning. We take it all the way to 11 a.m. We still got a lot to figure out with these guys. But I really think these storms could be dangerous Sunday morning. Not right now. And I'll tell you, it's one thing I haven't showed you guys, and I'll show you this on the fly here. Right now, for day 3, you only have a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms. Okay, so that's a level 1 out of 5, and you're thinking, well, that's not a big deal. But I'm telling you, I think that this will increase. It might not, but it's just a gut feeling that I have. We'll see. So that will be a dangerous area to watch Sunday morning for some the potential for some isolated tornadoes Sunday morning. And then we watch, and this only goes 48 hours out, we watch for an additional area of storms that could develop in Virginia, North Carolina later on. But the timing doesn't really support a high-end severe weather threat for South Carolina because the surface low moves in kind of over the morning hours. I would watch maybe right up here in the upstate of South Carolina, a little bit of spin right near the low. But the ingredients playing into this, quite simple. We start off Sunday morning. All this low-level moisture is building. Dew points rising into the 60s. And even some 70-degree readings, dew point-wise, into the eastern Carolinas, really eastern North Carolina. But, check it out. In South Carolina, by the time you get into about mid-morning, you got dry, stable air moving in. The dew points in the 50s, that probably isn't going to support severe weather. But you see this sector of moist air, dew points in the 60s, even some low 70s, that will. And in response, and look at how these dew points rise down here. This tells me that some storms might get going sometime Sunday afternoon, even in South Carolina. It's something to watch as the low pressure is heading on out. But this moist sector is going to be far enough inland to support some severe weather. And of course, you look at the mixed layer Cape, and this is morning Cape. This is Cape at around 8, 9, 10 a.m. already above 1,000 joules per kilogram in the morning. Mixed layer Cape. So I'm telling you, I would really watch this area. I look at a sounding, let's take a look at a sounding right here, deep in kind of southeast, eastern North Carolina, kind of the coastal plains of North Carolina. And you look at a sounding in this region, PDS tornado. Okay, looping hodograph. This isn't a tornado sounding, but based off this HRRR model run, this is a PDS sounding in the morning. Okay, so and what PDS? That's a dangerous tornado. That's a stronger tornado. So yeah, we certainly need to watch this. Okay, and the reason you have such a strong signal for this, guys, is because you got Cape levels, like I said, well over 1,000 joules per kilogram. Okay, and then look at the low-level jet ramping up over the Carolinas. Okay, let's make sure we get the time frame in here. This is around Sunday morning. The sun's coming up. Surface low right into here somewhere. And this low-level jet, 40 to 50, 55 knots. This is going to support tornadic development with your low-level moisture, okay? The instability. How much instability? If you can get the atmosphere to unstable even more For example, if this was happening in the afternoon, I think it really could be a dangerous situation. I do think you're going to get a slight risk at minimum in eastern North Carolina. So, this is some favorable wind profiles from Myrtle Beach all the way up the eastern areas of North Carolina. So, we definitely need to watch out for this. Updraft Felicity swath really picks it up right here in eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia, but I could expect this to increase. We'll certainly watch for this, guys. So, big update in the morning, then tomorrow evening. I do expect to chase something this weekend. I'm itching to do it. Going to test out some stuff that I got. Might live stream. But stay tuned from this. I'm telling you, there could be some upgrades in the future in the next few updates. But God bless all y'all. Have a great and safe Friday evening, and I'll talk to you soon.